The regular meeting of the Town of Fort Frances Council to order, it being session number 80. We'll begin, as we always do, with a territorial acknowledgement. Yeah. My apologies for the delay here. We thought we had it queued up, but we don't. And we're back. In the spirit of reconciliation, the town of Fort Frances acknowledges with respect that it is situated on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and the Métis people of Treaty 3. We give gratitude and honor to the ancestors, elders, and all Anishinaabe and Métis people for sharing their resources and knowledge with us. Agenda item number 3 is disclosure of pecuniary interest. Councillor, is there any disclosure? And if so, state the general nature thereof. Seeing none. Moving on to item number 4, which is delegations and deputations. We do have one. We're privileged tonight to have the Fort Frances Lakers here. Come on down. Tara, you're speaking? Well, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, Council. Tara Altair. Tonight I'm joined by Luke Judson and Joe Basaraba, and we're representing the Fort Frances Lakers. We're just here tonight to lend our support to making summer ice permanent in Fort Frances. Here to offer our perspective from our organization and from the hockey community. So you've probably already seen our delegation submission. I'm not going to reread the whole submission to you, but I think it outlines pretty clearly how having permanent summer ice in Fort Frances fits into the township's strategic plan. So under the quality of life pillar, in terms of initiatives for tourism and growth, I think a lot of potential remains untapped in our community for sports tourism. As you've seen from our submission, our 10 Junior Lakers AAA teams traveled around North America this summer, competing in tournaments in Chicago, in Minneapolis, in Winnipeg. There's a lot of untapped potential for the Fort Frances to be a destination on these summer tournaments. And unfortunately, until we know summer ice is permanent, there's no way for us to apply to be stops on these summer tournament tours or to even plan tournaments that we want. The summer sports tourism is a big business, and I think Fort Frances's location on the Minnesota border and our climate in the summer months has a lot of unrealized potential. So really, we would love for it to be permanent so we can plan for the future, knowing that ice is available. A lot of these applications to join these summer tournament tours take many months to process, many months to plan. So it would be nice to know ahead of time that we have that. Under health and community engagement, our AAA summer program grew to 156 youth athletes this summer. The growth of the sport in our community in the past few years has been huge, and we feel like the potential for growth has not yet been realized. We're already planning, if we do get summer ice again this summer, to add 2 more girls teams to our program, so that would bring our summer AAA teams up to 12 and add an extra 40 athletes. I'm told that our Junior Lakers AAA teams in the summer booked around 120 hours of ice last season, and they're hoping to expand on that with the addition of 2 more teams, summer tournaments for all 12 of our teams, etc. We feel strongly that we can put systems like summer in place so youth can stay active. Hockey is already an incredibly expensive sport, and adding barriers like the need for youth in our community to travel to Thunder Bay, to Winnipeg in the summer to even get ice to train kind of puts us behind even more. These are offerings that other communities have in place, and we think as much as we're able to be able to offer that here, the success of our athletes shouldn't be contingent on your family having enough money to travel out of town to play a sport that's already very expensive. So if you do have any questions, I have Luke, he's our head coach and GM, Joe Basaraba with me, he's our assistant coach, and he just wrapped up a 9-year professional career, and they can probably lend some insight if you have questions about moving away to play hockey or any of our Junior Lakers AAA or Lakers programs that we run in the summer. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Tara. I did read your brief, and it was a very impressive brief, as was your presentation. Councillors, do you have any questions? Yes, Councillor Morrison.
Thanks, Your Worship. Not a question. I just want to say thank you to the Lakers. For the last few years, the community involvement is just unbelievable. I've been working with Tara and Luke and the players, and they've been doing a lot of community involvement with Wichita Family Services, which I'm involved with. As seen last weekend, you guys have volunteered as well, and that's one of the reasons why they were the Youth Citizen of the Year, the team last year. And just thank you very much, and it's a good group of young men.
We appreciate that.
Anyone else, councillors? I do want to echo Councillor Morrison's comments. The Lakers have always been a positive influence on our community, and it seems that every year they're doing more and more for the community. So thank you very much for all that you do for our community, and thank you for coming out this evening. We will be discussing summer ice later in the program. It's on item number 10. You're welcome to stay for that, or you could go home and watch it on TV and have a snack and a delicious beverage.
Thank you. We appreciate your time. Joe has to coach at 6, and I miss my dog, so we'll be watching online.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you again for coming. Next, under item 4.2, we have a presentation from the Fort Frances Museum, and we have Christine, Sarah, and Jennifer here. And it looks like Jennifer's going to do the presentation. Sarah, sorry. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you.
Good evening, Your Worship, Mayor Halakis, Council, Administration, and members of the public. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. We're here to talk a little bit about the Hallett and Awandam Park project. So before we begin, I just want to acknowledge the significant effort that has gone into this project, administration's and report, and your. The preservation of these 2 tugboats also owes a great deal to the dedication of community members, former staff, whose work has spanned decades. We're here tonight, in part, to speak on behalf of those individuals, people who have poured their time, their expertise, and their heart into the preservations of these vessels dating back to the 1980s. As a member of the Museum and Culture Advisory Committee, our role is to advise and make recommendations to Council on matters related to tourism, culture, heritage, and the museum. Collectively, our delegation brings multi-term commitments to the committee, direct experience working at the museum, and more than a decade of volunteer service with the Friends of the Museum. We also took part in the consultation with Little Blue STEM and in the development of both the museum strat plan and the town's culture master plan. We fully appreciate the cost pressures, the tight timelines, and the funding challenges that weigh heavily in this extended decision-making process. We do not intend to detract from those realities, but we just hope to remind everyone why this project matters and why it merits thoughtful, positive steps forward. Our purpose tonight isn't to promote one particular construction option. It's to express concern about a couple of the options before council and to reaffirm the cultural and historical significance of the Hallett and the Awandam. What makes these boats and their builders, the Russell brothers, so important? The Russell brothers actually began here in Fort Frances. In 1907, they opened their first machine shop because of the bustling sawmills and active boating scene. They remained here for nearly 30 years before moving their operations to Owen Sound. That connection makes Fort Frances part of the Russell brothers' legacy and makes the Hallett and Awandam part of ours. Built in 1940, the Hallett is 60 feet long, nearly 60 tons, and once the most powerful logging tug on Rainy Lake, the queen of the Fort Frances towing fleet. Over the years, she's been captured in paintings, illustrations, and photographs, and even inspired the name and spirit of a new local business. In every sense, she's become an icon of Fort Frances. But she's also more than a boat. The Hallett stirs emotion in those with family ties to the mill, to the lake, or to the work that helped build this community. She offers a powerful educational opportunity to reflect on both the industrial achievements and the environmental impacts of our forestry history. This past summer, the museum received several inquiries from visitors asking if the Hallett could be accessed, clear evidence of the continued public interest she commands. The Awandam, built in 42, is a smaller Russell Brothers tug or bug boat that worked alongside the Hallett for the Ontario and Minnesota Pulp and Paper Company. Donated to the museum back in 2016, she's already benefited from restoration efforts, including more than $20,000 raised by the Friends of the Museum and countless in-kind hours from local volunteers and businesses. Together, the Hallett and Awandam tell the story of a working waterfront, a story of industry, resilience, and community identity. We were encouraged to hear that no one on council supports scrapping the vessels. We agree completely and believe that that option must remain off the table. However, we want to advise against any options that would lead to disassembly or permanent non-public storage, specifically options 3 and 4 in the administrative report. Moving away from preservation could damage confidence in the integrity of local heritage stewardship and undo decades of community effort. We do support prioritizing digitization, particularly of the Hallett, to improve accessibility, preserve her history, and extend her reach to new audiences. Digitization can complement physical preservation by enhancing education and tourism potential, but it cannot replace it. For the sake of maintaining public trust and protecting irreplaceable heritage assets, we strongly caution against any option that removes these vessels from public view or risks their destruction. From 1986 to 2002, the Hallett welcomed roughly 1,500 visitors during each 3-month summer season. While those figures are dated, they illustrate an important point. When heritage attractions are concentrated, as they once were there with the Lookout Tower, the Fort St. Pierre replica, and of course nearby amenities at the point, they can thrive as a destination for both residents and visitors. The Hallett and Awandam Park project supports the town's broader goal of developing the waterfront as a tourism and recreation hub, one that attracts both regional and cross-border visitors. As we look toward the 125th anniversary of the town's incorporation and the future development of the Shevlin Woodyard site, we have an opportunity not just to preserve our past, but to invest in our identity and our future. It is discouraging that project momentum and over $90,000 in funding have already been put at risk due to delays and deadlocks. But we believe that with renewed focus and commitment, this project can get back on track and achieve what it was always meant to: a revitalized, accessible waterfront that honors our history and inspires future generations. As noted in the administrative report, administration initiated a project to design a park at the marina featuring the Hallett and the Awandam tugboats as public displays to preserve and share their history. We hope that tonight we've demonstrated that these vessels can serve a purpose well just beyond their display as educational resources, as tourism assets, and symbols of community pride. We urge Council to consider this bigger picture, to see not just two aging boats, but two opportunities to preserve Fort Frances' story, attract visitors, and strengthen community identity. The Hallett and the Awandam once worked side by side to power the growth of this community across Rainy Lake, and today they can once again help move Fort Frances forward.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for an excellent report. We really appreciate the museum perspective on this. A lot of effort went into that report. It was very detailed, knowledgeable, and thorough. So thanks very much. Again, I'll ask the councilors if they have any questions or comments. Seeing none, I will point out that that issue is on the council agenda later on. You, of course, are welcome to stay, or you can go and watch it from home. Thank you for
We were
coming.
just saying you need cushions in these seats, so we might head home. Thank you. Thank you.
Again, thank you very much, ladies, for coming. Just before we move on, I would like to welcome Sumantra Ghosh this evening. Sumantra is our new Economic Development Officer, and he's attending as an observer his first council meeting. So welcome, Sumantra. With that, we'll go to item number 6, which is correspondence. 6.1 is a swim to survive resolution that's being put forward by Councillor Mackey. And with your permission, Councillor Mackey, I'll put a resolution on the floor, and then we can get it moved and seconded, and you can speak to it. So the resolution I'd like to put on the floor is that Council support and endorse the City of Dryden Resolution Number 14, urging the Government of Ontario through the Ministry of Education to incorporate mandatory water safety and swim to survive training into the elementary school curriculum for all Ontario students. And I'm assuming, Councillor Mackey, you'll move that? Could I get a seconder on that, please? Councillor Firth, and to you, Councillor Mackey, to open discussion.
Thank you, Your Worship. Sadly, the town of Dryden, or city of Dryden, had to put this forward because of the tragic loss a few months back of the 2 young children. Since this came out, even another tragedy happened in the same community. I asked our clerk, who checked with our 2 local school boards about this specific training. The public school board does for grade 1 and 2 some swimming classes. The Catholic school board does not. And in speaking with somebody from the public school board, it's all about money. And so I would plead for the school boards to both step up and initiate some of this. Having said that, I understand that everything costs money, and hopefully they can find some so that we here don't have the same type of tragedy. And so on that, I ask that this be.
Thank you, Councillor Mackey. Any other comments or questions, councillors? Councillor Bernetta.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just wondering if the question of money is for the rental of the pool. Is that what you found out, Councillor Mackey?
Councillor Mackey?
Partially was the cost of the pool access, needing sufficient lifeguards, busing. There was a long list of things, not just the costs of the actual facility. So there's more to it than just booking some pool time.
Thank you, councilors.
So as a follow-up,
Follow up, go
as
ahead.
a follow-up, then I would suggest that if we are asking the Ministry of Education to look into this, that we as a council should also consider how we might assist in the form of, the pool rental or whatever we might look at.
Other comments or questions? Seeing none, then I will call the question on this issue. All in favor? That's carried and no one is opposed. Councilor Mackey, just with respect to Councilor Burnetta's suggestion, if at some point you decide that council should do something further, we can bring another motion forward at another council meeting. Okay, that brings us to item 6.2, which is correspondence from the Niagara region, and this is a motion respecting a state of emergency that they declared. I'm not suggesting that we declare a state of emergency, but I'm suggesting that we endorse and support what they're requesting. And I'll put an oral motion on the floor. The council support and endorse the Niagara region resolution advocating that the province support a coordinated approach between the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services to address ongoing challenges related to mental health, homelessness, and opioid addiction, and for provincial funding to address identified gaps in programs and services contributing to the state of emergency, including affordable housing, supportive housing, addiction treatments, and mental health supports for vulnerable populations, and that this resolution be sent to the provincial and federal governments, FCM, AMO, and all municipalities in Ontario. Could I get a mover and seconder on that, Councillor Morrison and Councillor Burnetta? Any discussion or comments on this? I'll just make one general comment. Like all communities in Ontario, Fort Frances is having a very serious problem with addictions, mental health, and housing. And it requires an all-of-government approach. It's not something that municipalities can solve on their own. So I'm asking councilors to support this. All in favor? That's carried and no one was opposed. Thank you, councilors. Moving on to council reports and board activity. My report is written, so I'll skim it, but it's been a busy couple of weeks, and I just want to highlight a few items. Mr. Rickford was in town and made an announcement regarding funding for the DSAB paramedicine program. And I do want to give a shout out to the paramedicine program. It's a program where paramedics will assist seniors in their homes. It allows seniors to age in their homes, but it's also a program that assists others in their homes as well. So rather than having to go to the hospital or emergency, you can get a trained paramedic coming right to your house. And Minister Rickford was here to announce funding for that program, much needed funding for that program, and also funding for vehicles for that program. I'd further like to add that Minister Rickford has been spearheading many initiatives to improve healthcare in the Rainy River District, not the least of which was a new MRI machine that's coming to Riverside Healthcare. At our last council meeting, we had Thunder Bay Media here. They covered our council meeting. Prior to the meeting, they interviewed me on a plethora of topics. And then following the meeting, they interviewed me again on a variety of different topics. And then during the week, I got a number of follow-up phone calls, and they generated a number of articles based on our council meeting. I want to give a shout out to our senior center. Recently, the senior center had the Senior Center Active Living Fair. They do this annually. It was a wonderful day, a full day with exhibitors, health information, guest speakers, all manner of information on community services and much more. And I really want to extend thanks to the board of the Sister Kennedy Center, chaired by Debbie McTaggart. I want to thank Cindy Noble, Elisa McLeod, and the Senior Center Board, as I mentioned, and also the OACAC stands for the Ontario Adult Centres of Canada, who were a major funder for this. And of course, as always, the volunteers who put this on. So that was an excellent thing for our seniors. The Boundary Waters Fishing Coalition is active. As you know, we've got together with the City of Kenora, with Keewatin, with Sioux Narrows, with tourist groups, with fishing guides and fishing camp owners, to try and get the government, the federal government in particular, to take some action on American fishing guides, bringing American anglers into Canadian waters, not touching shore, not contributing to the Canadian economy, but using the Canadian resources basically to deprive our fishing guides and our camp owners of their economic livelihood. And so at this meeting, I was asked to give a report because I had met with Minister Rickford on this. I had met with Minister Harris, and we did a delegation to the Solicitor General and got a good reception there. So I did a report on that. The province is taking some action on this, and I give them credit for that. Of course, more needs to be done. But the bulk of the action needs to come from the federal government. Our Member of Parliament, Marcus Pawlowski, had his Chief of Staff at that meeting, and the Chief of Staff gave a report that Marcus had written a very firm letter to the federal government on the fishing situation, on border security and enforcement. Unfortunately, that letter can't be released. It's classified as confidential, but the contents were discussed at the meeting, and I was very pleased at the strong tone of that letter. A really exciting thing that happened, and I love events like this, was Seven Generations, another great organization that assists our community in so many ways, held their annual fall harvest on a beautiful fall day. I mention that because in the past, they've actually had it on some days where it snowed. It was a wonderful event with a number of different, I guess you could call them booths or centers of activities that were set up. And they had, over the 2 days of that, over 700 school children go through and learn different skills related to the land. And so again, a shout out to Seven Gens for educating our youth in First Nations and Métis culture. Another exciting event was the Chamber of Commerce Annual Business Awards. I mentioned this, I'm sure other councillors will comment on it, but I mention it because it's the first time that the town of Fort Frances sponsored an award, and I was very pleased that we did so, that we stepped up, and that we're supporting small businesses in the town of Fort Frances. And the town of Fort Frances also supported the entire event by purchasing 2 tables, and I thank all of the councillors who attended that meeting to show their support. Councillors Firth and Councillors McTaggart also presented an award at that evening. I had an interview with the CBC. They were very interested in the fact that the town of Fort Frances received $200,000 for the crisis response team. That money was the result of a partnership effort between the OPP, the town of Fort Frances, and the Canadian Mental Health Association. I was very pleased to see that we actually got the same amount of money that the city of Thunder Bay got. So I think that indicates that we're getting some attention and that our programs are working and are worth funding. We did a flag raising. We raised the Francophone flag, and we issued a petition, and we had the petition read both in English and in French. I had another meeting with Minister Rickford, again, dealing with immigrant workers in our community. We desperately need immigrant workers in our community. Many of our small businesses depend on these immigrant workers. Again, the primary responsibility here is the federal government, but the province of Ontario has a program called the OINP program, which is the Ontario Immigration Nomination Program, that they work in concert with the federal government. And this program actually allows nominated immigrant workers a path to permanent residency. So that's something that our small business owners want to see supported, and I'm trying very hard with the provincial government to get more places for Fort Frances. Speaking of that particular issue, again, I mentioned that the primary responsibility for immigrant workers lies with the federal government. Unfortunately, the federal government, the new federal government, is trying to cut back on immigrant students and immigration in general, particularly because there's an influence to large urban centers. But for small, rural, isolated communities and northern communities such as us, we desperately need these workers. There's jobs for them, there's housing for them, and so there's a place for them. And so through our member of parliament, Marcus Pawlowski, I've been making the argument that there should be targeted immigration. Fine, federal government, if you don't want more immigrants going to urban centers, there's no reason why you couldn't be steering some of them to small rural communities that need them. So Marcus was actually in with the Prime Minister of Canada discussing this issue, and they phoned us here in Fort Frances to see if there had been any changes, and there were no changes. So that was information that the federal government wanted. Member of Parliament Pawlowski made that pitch that we understand that you want to reduce immigration to large urban centers, but there's a need for it for rural isolated centers. And they saw the reasoning of that, and they suggested that that might be something that they could look into. And so they've asked for further information on this situation from Marcus. And Marcus has allied himself with other MPs who represent rural ridings, and they've bonded together to present a united front on the need for this. So we are starting to get a little bit of traction on that particular issue. And I'll do one more. I want to give a shout out to Orange Shirt Day. And as part of my shout out, I want to especially thank Wichitawan, who have done the bulk of the organizing. And I want to thank Councillor Morrison, who not only did the bulk of the organizing for Wichitawan, but spoke very, very powerfully and very, very passionately on Orange Shirt Day prior to our walk. I also want to give thanks and a shout out to the entire Truth and Reconciliation Committee. This is a committee made up of 23 groups in Fort Frances, the town of Fort Frances being one of them. And of course, as always, to all of the volunteers who took part. Councillor Morrison can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would have to say it was a tremendous turnout that day, and I think that it had to be a record number of walkers that we had. And it was such an impressive sight to see so many walking together, all wearing orange shirts, going from the site of a residential school to the Point Park where a powwow was held. So thank you to all of the councilors who attended. We had a good turnout from the town of Fort Frances staff as well. So thanks to everyone who went there. And just as an aside to that, the town of Fort Frances, through our clerks, during that week, arranged to have a continuous screening here right in council chambers of a very powerful film put out by the Canadian Film Board called It Had to Be Done. And so that was running continuously here as well as part of the Orange Church Shirt Truth and Reconciliation Month of October. Okay, and with that, I will go to Councillor Bien.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, everyone. The Rainy River District Municipal Association has been meeting quarterly with the CEO, administration, and board of Riverside Healthcare to discuss various issues as they crop up. We meet as 3 committees representing the west, central, and east catchment areas of the district, with me representing Fort Frances as part of the East Committee, along with Albertan Councillor Diane Glowowski. Our most recent meeting was held on Wednesday, October 1st, during which Director of Fundraising Holly Kaming was on hand to discuss the current Lights Camera Diagnosis campaign that aimed to bring world-class diagnostic imaging technology to 2 Riverside facilities, including, as the mayor alluded to earlier, the district's first MRI to be located at Laverondi General Hospital here in Fort Francis. The campaign goal is to raise $1.6 million. The FDC Foundation, which I believe is out of the Toronto area, has pledged $800,000 up front with the promise of another $200,000 for a total of $1 million if $600,000 is raised locally by next summer. I believe about $200,000 of that is already raised or pledged, leaving roughly $400,000 still needed to meet the goal. I know there's been a lot of negative press and controversy around Riverside's recent decision to part ways with the Riverside Foundation for Healthcare, and some legitimate concerns and questions being raised. However, as someone whose wife had an MRI appointment at 3:30 a.m. in Thunder Bay, and myself having one scheduled for 10:30 p.m. there, I cannot stress enough the importance of having an MRI located right here in Rainy River District. It's also my understanding that the MRI unit, I've gone too far, we will be receiving from Siemens is state-of-the-art technology critical to providing timely, top-notch care close to home for all of our residents. As such, I hope everyone can put aside any misgivings about what happened with the foundation and support the Light Camera Diagnosis campaign, either through purchasing tickets for the monthly 50-50 draw, attending fundraising events in support of it, or if you're able to make a financial donation either one time or monthly, or as a tribute gift in memory of a loved one. Corporate partnerships also are available. So again, I urge everyone to work together as a community and district to raise that final $400,000 and ensure an MRI unit is accessible locally. Secondly, I'd like to speak briefly about the Fort Francis Public Library Board's monthly meeting that I attended along with Mayor Halakis and Councillor Morrison, which was held on Thursday, September 18th. The board approved the previous meeting minutes and the financial report, while Ken Keller volunteered to be our board assembly representative. As well, the board reviewed 11 policies as part of the ongoing accreditation audit that is scheduled for November 3rd. I can report that Elena Eldridge was hired as the new Children and Youth Services Coordinator on September 16th. So welcome, Elena, and good luck in your new position. Meanwhile, the Fort Francis Public Library Technology Center is looking for a casual/call-in public service clerk, with the job posting to remain open until next Wednesday, October 22nd at 5 p.m. Send your resume and cover letter to ncousino@ffpltc or drop them off at the library during its regular hours of operations. And in related news, to kick off Ontario Public Library Week next week, an event is entitled Coffee with the Mayor is slated for Monday, October 20th at 11 a.m. at the library. Residents are invited to drop by for coffee, cupcake, and discuss our awesome library. Other special events also are planned for that week, so stay tuned for more details. I think a family movie showing is also part of that. The library board will hold its next monthly meeting this Thursday, October 16th at 4:35 p.m. in the Shaw Room. And finally, I attended the meeting of the Indigenous Relations Advisory Committee along with Mayor Halakis and Councillor Morrison that was held last Wednesday, October 8th at noon, right here at the Civic Center. I believe Councillor Morrison will report on this meeting as part of his verbal update. So that concludes my report for this month.
Thank you, Councillor Behan. Councillor Bernetta.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening. Just have a couple of meetings to report on, and they are actually why I was not at our last council meeting. So on September 22nd and 23rd, I attended our annual in-person meeting of the Board of Health in Kenora. This 2 half-day meeting covered a lot of information. We received governance training from Loretta Ryan, who is the Executive Director of Alpha, and Monica Turner, a name you might recognize from the AMO board, who is now a consultant. Then, as part of the corporate administration update, we received reports on the following: our insurance renewal, our benefits usage and trends, and an IT operations update. The following day, we received presentations from the Speech, Hearing, and Vision program, as well as a cybersecurity overview. Our meeting concluded with a review of the Board of Health Constitution with some minor changes, some strategic plan updates, and reports from the Medical Officer of Health, and another regarding examining the impact of alcohol availability on police, emergency, and health services. Sadly, at the end of the meeting, we bid farewell and best wishes to our Executive Assistant, Lindsay Koch. So I'm not sure when you might get a copy of the minutes of our last meeting in your email, but I'm hoping it won't be too long. Lindsay will truly be missed. Our next meeting will be held virtually on October 29th. Also, the NOMA board met in Thunder Bay on September 24th. We received a report from Gary Christian of the North Superior Workforce Planning Board. He indicated that the Northwest has the second lowest unemployment in the province. So this is both good news and bad news, but it obviously demonstrates that we have a serious labor shortage in the region. So that might be something you could help, Mr. Mayor. So if you would like more information, the Northwestern Ontario Training Adjustment Board website actually breaks down the employment information by district. We passed a motion which provided feedback to the government on their paper titled Consultation on the Future of Community Natural Gas Expansion. So while the motion was from NOMA, it was suggested that it be sent to all districts so that they too could provide resolutions of support. During the updates from district municipal associations, Doug Hartnell reported that the RRDMA was looking into doing a video to market our area. After some discussion, it was felt that NOMA could actually invest some dollars from FedNor and NOHFC to produce a video/documentary which could actually market all of our areas. So it was something that would cover the whole region, but it could also be broken down by district as well. So I believe Doug will be bringing that back to the RRDMA. So our next meeting is on November 26th in Thunder Bay.
Thank you, Councillor Bernetta. Councillor Morrison?
Thank you, Your Worship. On September 18th, I attended the Physician and Recruitment Committee meeting. A lot of people don't realize that they think it's just physician recruitment and retention, but the committee is hard at work on bringing locums into the area. A lot of times you hear like maybe the emergency room is getting close to being shut down, and a lot of it's what I feel is a flawed locum funding program. If the locum's booked 30 days in advance, it's like $165 an hour for the doctors. But if they wait like a week before their shift, then I think, I'm not sure, it's a lot, it's significantly more. So that's one of the reasons why a lot of these hospitals are getting close to being closed, their emergency rooms. It's because these locums know they're traveling and they'll wait and they'll get the higher rate of pay if they wait 1 week before traveling to the area. So I just want to assure everybody there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes with community healthcare professionals. They're working together to get these locums, anesthesiologists, surgeons, doctors that are filling emergency rooms. So they're working hard. Notice on the 2026 budget survey that the physician recruitment and retention portion had the highest amount of responses with people wanting increase. So it's a very important issue in our area, with 48% saying that they wanted increased funding. 40% said they wanted status quo, and only 7% said they want to reduce funding for retention and recruitment of new physicians. So it just shows how important it is in our area, the healthcare. The committee and the partners have been working very hard to attract new physicians and nurse practitioners. And the minutes of the September 18th meeting aren't approved yet, but I can say there's optimistic news on the horizon for medical care in our area. I'll just leave it at that. On October 8th, I attended Indigenous Relations Advisory Committee. As we'll see in the agenda tonight, the advisory committee is asking for $10,000, which will be going towards honorariums, gifting protocols, SAMA, tobacco, and Indigenous relations training. The committee has been working on reconciliation policy. There's currently 10 pages meant to guide the town towards the goal of reconciliation and shared prosperity with Indigenous people of the southern region of Treaty 3. The committee has been reading and referring to the UNIDRIP, which is the United Nations Declaration of Rights for Indigenous Peoples, and it's a guide for municipalities. The mayors wrote a draft preamble for reconciliation policy, which I thought was really fitting. I just want to thank town employees, Chelsea, Ellie, and Marcel, and the mayor for attending Truth and Reconciliation Walk on September 30th, and anybody else who I might have not seen and missed. And they also arranged the flag raising on September 2nd, proclaiming September as Truth and Reconciliation Month. We really appreciate it. Also want to thank Manager Rob and his staff for arranging the barriers and no parking signs that were integral to allowing 1,000 students and school staff to be picked up in the Truth and Reconciliation events on September 30th. And that couldn't have happened without everybody working together. It's support from the town like this that supports reconciliation. I believe the actions we take with local First Nations are the most important step towards reconciliation. We have written guidelines, but actions like the town getting involved and attending local First Nation events shows that the town is truly serious about reconciliation. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Morrison. That brings us to item number 8, which is the consent agenda, and we have 2 items this evening. I'll put them on the floor. 8.2, the recommendation reads that the following minutes of mayor and council be approved as presented. 1, the special council meeting of September 27th, 2025 regarding bylaw 70-25. 2, the special council meeting of September 27th, 2025 regarding strategic planning. And 3, the regular council meeting of September 22nd, 2025. 8.3 deals with boards and committee meeting minutes, and the recommendation reads that the following boards and committee meeting minutes be received as information. The Indigenous Relations Advisory Committee meeting of September 10th, 2025, the Museum and Culture Advisory Committee meeting of June 17th, 2025, and the Rainy River District West OPP Detachment Board meeting minutes of June 27th, 2025. Anybody want any of those pulled? Seeing none, I have a recommendation then that council approve the consent agenda as follows. Items 8.2 and 8.3. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Councilor Bernetta, Councilor Morrison. Any discussion? All in favor? It's carried. No one is opposed. Moving on to item number 9, which is Administration and Finance Division reports. 9.1, I'll put the following recommendation on the floor. The council receive report AR-25-0914 and approve administration to use the Ontario CPI of 1.7% for the increase to user fees for 2026. Can I get a mover and seconder on that, please? Councilor Behan, Councilor McTaggart. Discussion, councilors? Councilor Behan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, a question for Madam Treasurer, and maybe she can't answer this question, but I'm going to put it out there anyway. I'm assuming the 1.7 is sort of the average for Ontario, and I'm presuming that Northern Ontario in general, Northwestern Ontario in particular, might have a CPI higher than that, given where we live. And I'm just wondering if there's any figures or numbers on what, because I think any user fee increase should be based on the reality of what we're facing here, not necessarily the average of Ontario or Canada for that matter. So I'm just curious if Madam Treasurer could supply that information or some sort of guess. Thank you.
Madam Treasurer.
Thank you, through the chair. I can't garner a guess on that. However, I do agree with you. We've always, and I'm going to say always, in my time and the past treasurer's time, used the Ontario CPI. I don't believe I can get the data for just Northern Ontario, which is why we don't. So if you wish to choose a different value, absolutely, we will proceed with whatever the wish of council is.
Councilor Behan, follow up.
Thank you, Madam Treasurer. As a follow-up, I'm not sure we've ever done this before, but in terms of having numbers that we know of, our labor budget is going to increase by 2% next year, if I'm not mistaken, with the fourth and final year of the QP agreement. Yet we're looking at user fee increases of maybe 1.7%, maybe lower if we take out food, as Councilor Burnett has talked about before. I'm just curious if there's a will of council to think that that's something we should be taking into consideration going forward, that we know that number of 2% increase. Should our user fee increase at least match that so that we're not losing money? That's what I'm wondering about. It's more of a comment than a question, I guess, but thank you.
I'll take that as a comment. Any other questions or comments, councilors? Just before I move on, Councilor Behan, are you suggesting any change to 1.7, or are we going to?
Again, I know that we're trying to keep user fees as manageable as possible because I want to make sure we don't price our programs and services out of reach of our residents. But we're also in tough budget years, and I'm going to make sure that we're not shortchanging ourselves, so to speak. So we already know that our labor budget is going to go up 2% next year. I'm more than willing to get close to that number, 2%. I see the Canada one was 1.9. That's fairly close. I'd be willing to do that, but I'm just curious that I'd be willing to get it close to what our labor budget increase is so that we at least cover that. Thank you.
So again, back to you. Are you making an amendment?
Sure, I'll move an amendment that we use the Canada CPI of 1.9%.
Okay, councilors, the recommendation has been amended to read 1.9 instead of 1.7. Can I get a mover and seconder on the amendment? Councilor Morrison, Councilor Firth? Any discussion on the amendment? Councilor Morrison.
Through the chair, thanks, Your Worship. I think it's important, because I do hear quite often from taxpayers, because we are getting kind of maxed out, that a lot of times taxpayers are footing the bill for things like, the Memorial Sports Center that they're not using. So I don't really have an issue with the user fees. Being a user myself, I just, instead of raising taxes for everybody else to cover some of that stuff, because we will have, I'd rather see the user fees cover, meet that percentage. So I'm in agreement with Councilor Bean, and I think it's a good idea. I'd even be willing to go to 2%.
Thank you. Further discussion? Calling the question on the amendment. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. So on the main motion now reads that council receive report AR-25-0914 and approve administration to use the Ontario to use an increase of 1.9% for the increase to user fees for 2026. Any discussion on the main motion? Councilor Bean?
For clarification, if we use the Canada CPI at 1.9%.
Like Ontario and
Canada
CPI of
That's
1.9%. Thank you for that. Councilor McTaggart?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just through the budget survey that the clerk's office has presented to us, I see time and time again the taxes are so high, everything's so high, and here we want to put the user fees up. So I'm going to vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McTaggart. Any further discussion? Calling the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, 9.2 is the Indigenous Relations budget. I'll put a resolution on the floor that council direct administration to include a proposed $10,000 on a new Indigenous Relations budget line in the upcoming 2026 budget deliberations. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councilor Firth, Councilor Bean. Okay, discussion on this? Councilor Bernetta.
I'm just wondering if this is we're just approving that it be submitted to budget deliberations. We're not saying it's approved at this point.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Councilor McTaggart?
Thank you, Your Worship. Will the budget submission come with dollar amounts attached to in detail?
We'll see that it has some dollar amounts.
Thank you.
Further, Councilor Mackey?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm wondering if this is a one-time ask or is this going to be an annual $10,000?
The intent is that we create a budget line and that it be contributed to every year because the process of reconciliation will be an ongoing event and it will have expenses every year. I just can't guarantee what the amount will be, and that'll be up to council to decide. Further questions or discussion? Calling the question, all in favor? That's carried, no one was opposed. Okay, 9.3 is the Roma 2026 Annual Conference. I'll put a recommendation on the floor and then we can discuss it. The council direct administration to register the following people for the Roma 2026 Annual Conference. Mayor Halikas, CAO Michaels, and then 2 councilors to be named. Can I get a mover and seconder to get this on the floor? Councilor Firth, Councilor Mackey. I'll just quickly speak to it. I asked to help us in our deliberation, I asked the clerk to get some data for us. I didn't include NOMA because NOMA is open to everybody every time, but I asked the clerk to just get a record of which councils have attended, like how many conferences so far in this term of council. Councilor Morrison hasn't attended any any conferences. Councilor Firth has attended one. Councilor Burnett, I think, attended two. Councilor Bean attended two. Councilor McTaggart attended three. And Councilor Mackey attended two. So the people who have applied are Councilors Firth, McTaggart, and Morrison. Councilor Bean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we had previously discussed cutting back the number of councillors going to these kind of meetings, Roma, AMO, et cetera, from 2 to 1. And now I see we got back to looking for 2 this time. Is there a reason why we're going away from that away and going back to 2 again? Thank you.
Thanks for that question. It was my understanding that we had intended to cut back, and I don't know why it's gone back up to 2, but it has gone back up to 2 and has been for the last few councils. I don't know if that was a council decision. Councilor McTaggart?
I have to withdraw my name from that.
Okay, thank you, Councilor McTaggart. I'll get an answer to that question for you. I kind of wondered myself how it got back up, but it's been back up for a few years now. We've been sending to. Yeah.
If memory serves correct, we only sent one to AMO this past August, Councillor Firth and yourself, I believe, and K.O. Marcel.
Yeah, 2.
Michaels, so 2, mayor and one councillor. And then for
that's
Roma,
right.
I'm not sure what we did last year for Roma. I can't remember. Was there 2? Just so, again, it was just so this term of council is all of a sudden it's back up to 2. That's all I'm questioning.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good point, and thank you for bringing that up. So, Council, it's up to you to decide. Do you want to send 2 to this, or do you want to send 1? Councilor Mackey?
Well, in light of the fact that in the last few conferences, we've sent mayor and 1 councillor, I would support 1 and 1.
Okay. Just a kind of consensus nods, 1? Yeah, I'm seeing 1. So my suggestion would then be that Councilor Morrison go, because he hasn't gone to any conferences at all. And Councilor Firth went to the last conference. I'm getting kind of thumbs up on that. Anybody vehemently opposed to that? Okay, so recommendation reads that council direct administration to register the following people: Mayor Halikas, CEO Michaels, and Councilor Morrison. And thank you for that, Councilor. Any further discussion? Calling the question. All in favor? Carried. No one is opposed. Okay, item number 4, for information, but was very, very interesting, I thought. This is the budget survey results, and I will put a resolution on the floor. The council accept report AR-25-0917 titled 2026 Budget Survey Results as information. And the council endorse these top 10 priorities of the public as the top 10 priorities of the 2026 budget. 1, safe communities, including fire, police, and paramedic services. 2, infrastructure, including roads, bridges, and stormwater. 3, public health. 4, affordable housing. 5, snow and ice control. 6, emergency management. 7, active living, which includes parks, trails, and recreation. 8, communication and transparency. 9, long-term care. And 10, downtown revitalization. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Councilor Morrison, Councilor Renetta. Any discussion on this? Councilor Bean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I have a hard time with this 10 because it doesn't include economic development. And that to me is my priority number 1, and certainly it's top 3. And to pass something that's not even in there, now if I read the report correctly, it came number 11 by 3 votes. But the point is, I think economic development should be on the top 10 list. I was also surprised to see that green energy initiatives ranked 18th out of the 20 that were submitted. And I think that's also very important to include because as we discussed, here we are now, we have some companies looking at solar farms and battery energy storage systems coming here. We have a Highbury and a First Nations conglomerate looking at coming together to do a biofuel facility here. I think, and then at our strategic plan session we held just a couple of weeks ago, we talked about making Fort Frances a green energy hub. So I would like to see green energy initiatives get in the top 10 as well. And the last thing I see that, to my mind, is missing, and that to the public's, in fairness to the public, it wasn't listed as one of the top 20, but reconciliation. It was also something we talked about quite heavily at our strategic planning session, and I think that should be in their top 10 as well. What 3 we take out to replace those, I'm not positive, but I think those 3 should be in the top 10. No disrespect to the public, and I thank those who suggested their ideas and took part in this. But I really think we're lacking if we don't have those 3 in the top 10. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Further discussion? Councillor Bernetta?
I just support Councillor Behan's comments. I know that we spent a really good full day discussing council's priorities. And I guess the question is, do we override some of these decisions, or do we just, bring back to administration, here's what the survey said and here's what council said. So, taking them in parallel. But I would agree, for me, economic development is one of the top things that we need to focus on. And I think that's primarily because we as councillors see how economic development could assist with high taxation. It could help us to offset a lot of those high taxes. So, and maybe that's just not general knowledge at the public level. So I would also like to put economic development near the top if we're looking at revising this list.
Thank you. Further discussion? Just so that we don't get into a big wrangle about what comes in what order, I'd make a suggestion. A suggestion would be that we amend the resolution and delete the word 10 and say council endorse these top priorities of the public, and then add to the list green energy, economic development, and reconciliation. Is that reasonable? I'm getting nods. So I need someone to make that amendment. Councillor Firth? Okay, and the amendment is that council endorse these top priorities of the public, the list as given, plus green energy, economic development, and reconciliation. Can I get a mover and second? Oh, this already moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? That's carried. No one was opposed. Oh, yes, my bad. I've been called on a point of parliamentary procedure. I neglected to get the amendment moved and seconded. So, Councillor Burnett, I'm assuming Councillor Bien, you're moving the amendment, seconded by Councillor Mackey on the amendment. Any discussion? All in favor on the amendment? That's carried. And then the main motion already passed. I'm not going to redo that, but thank you very much. Me on my toes. Okay, moving on to item number 10, which is Community Services Division reports. And this 10.1 deals with the summer ice review. I'll put a resolution on the floor. The council endorsed the continuation of summer ice as a permanent annual offering at the Memorial Sports Center and the IFK Arena beginning in 2026, and that council direct administration to continue monitoring program utilization, operational costs, and revenues to ensure ongoing efficiency and sustainability, and the council direct administration to review and update user fees associated with summer ice to ensure additional costs are captured in the 2026 budgeting process. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Firth, Councillor Bien. Discussion, councillors. Councillor Bernetta.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have to say I really struggle with this decision. Based on the report, citing a deficit for 2026, it's hard to say, oh yeah, I want to support that because we're going to go in the hole. But after hearing the presentation from Tara and the Lakers, I also understand how it's difficult to plan things like competitions or tournaments when you don't know for sure if there's going to be summer ice next year. So I think that I'm leaning towards saying yes, approving this, because I want to encourage tourism activities for our community. I think it's a way that perhaps at some point we can move to the profit side, and maybe we just have to start here. And in the future, you know, I think future councils or future people at this table can look at it again and just ensure that it is making a profit, and then they can decide whether to discontinue it. So at this point, I'm thinking of supporting it.
Thank you, Councilor Bernetta. Further discussion, Councilor McTaggart and then Councilor Morrison. Councilor McTaggart?
Thank you, Your Worship. I think it's a break even, which I'm prepared to accept, fairly close. I think the bigger factor is the economic driver that it may be for the community and for the area. Bringing people in, tournaments, the Lakers group talk about getting on a tournament circuit, and that will enhance our tourism and people coming to the community, which is a positive. So I will support it on that basis. The third part of that motion is council direct administration to review and update the user fees when we just passed the user fee schedule. So does this separate itself away from that user fee increase that we just approved?
Good question.
Thank you, Your Worship. The user fee was simply a baseline, so we'll still look at the review of it. It uses the baseline of 1.9%, and then any anomalies would be included. So there's still room to adjust that, like those monies. So I hope that's explaining it. Like the user fees haven't been completely done.
So it will be at a minimum of 1.9 and possibly greater.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Morrison?
To the chair, I agree. I concur with my esteemed colleague here that there's going to be an economic driver for the area. I've been hearing a lot about summer tournaments. My own kids took part in tournaments. We always had to travel far away. We were going to like Fargo, Minneapolis, Blaine, and I've been hearing that if it is going to go ahead, there's going to be a lot of tournaments probably planned in the area for summer hockey, which would be a great thing for the whole area. And as Councilor McTaggart said, it'll be a great economic driver, and I agree.
Thanks, Councilor Morrison. Councilor Mackey?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm trying to find on here, and I'm not seeing it. And this, I guess, a number, how much is the added increase usage wearing down the equipment that if the cooling plant ice machine takes 10 years, but now we're going to have to replace it in 8. Is that costing budgeted into these numbers here so that we get a truer cost to operating through the summer?
Who's going to take that? Manager Rob, sorry, I didn't see up there on the screen. Go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. Unfortunately, it's very hard to put a time on the impacts to the ice plant. Right now, our 2 IFK compressors, one of the compressors has 116,000 hours on it. The other compressor's got 105,000 hours on it. The 105,000 hour compressor has been rebuilt once. The 116,000 hour compressor has not. Why? I don't have an answer to that. So it's very hard to go and say, okay, because we're going to run summer ice, instead of rebuilding compressors every 5 years, now we have to rebuild the compressors every 3 years. At 116,000 hours, this is an original compressor, original to the original build. It may have a year left in its life. It may have 10 years left in its life. These are the types of compressors, unfortunately, that just operate that way. All I can say is that operating these compressors through the summertime, it's very high risk. It pushes the compressors very hard. Compressors are running on average 23.5 to 24 hours a day for the entire summer period. working hard too. These aren't just running to keep things cool. Like these are running to combat Mother Nature. So it's a high wear type of ice making, and it's a high hour type of ice making, and it's a high risk.
Thank you, Manager Rob. Further questions? Councilor Beam.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Looking at this, it sort of troubles me because in 2025, if I'm doing my math correctly, we had a surplus of about $33,000 this year. Talking in the 2026 projections, we're looking at an increase of about $5,000 in revenue, but an increase of about $40,000 in expenses, largely related to with staffing, I believe. And so, like Councilor McTaggart, I think that the $2,700 deficit that is projecting right now, I can live with because I think the greater good can cover that. But I guess my question maybe for Manager McLeod is that $61,000 for revenue, is that sort of the bottom figure you're looking at? Or with the Lakers presentation about going more tournament and getting 2 more junior teams, AA teams involved, will that increase revenues so that we can get that deficit eaten away altogether? Thank you.
Manager McLeod.
Thank you, through the chair. It is a very conservative number. So I did go pretty bottom for that. And I'm hoping that with the Lakers bringing in, and also just it being a more permanent thing, things can be planned more and more programming as well.
Follow up?
I can say that the projected deficit for 2026 of $2,700 is not cast in stone or firm. It's, if anything, it might get a surplus in the end. That's fair to say.
Manager McLeod.
Through the chair. Correct, yeah. I'm hoping we don't see a deficit.
Further discussion, councilors? Calling the question. All in favor? No one was opposed. It's carried. Okay. Item number 11 is Planning and Development Division reports. There are none. Item number 12 is Operation and Facilities Division reports, and 12.1 is a water servicing agreement with 2491570 Ontario Limited. I'll put a resolution on the floor that reads, the council approval of report AR-25-0910 will agree with the recommendation of Operations and Facilities Executive Committee to enter into a service agreement with Jamie Davis as trustee for 2491570 Ontario Limited to provide water service to 147 Oakwood Road. And further, that an authorizing bylaw be prepared authorizing the mayor and clerk to execute the agreement on behalf of the corporation. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Firth, Councillor Bernetta. And discussion, councillors. Seeing none, calling the question. All in favor? That's carried. No one is opposed. Okay, 12.2, entering into an easement agreement with the Township of Alberta related to the previous one. Put a resolution on the floor that council approval report number AP-25-0911 will ensure that the town of Fort Frances enter into an easement agreement with the Township of Alberta for the purpose of supplying water service to 147 Oakwood Road. Further, that a bylaw be prepared authorizing the mayor and clerk to execute the easement agreement and transfer of easement on behalf of the corporation. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor McTaggart, Councillor Mackey. Any discussion? All in favor? That was carried. No one was opposed. 12.3 is an award of the internal SMS audit. So the recommendation that goes on the floor is that council approval of report AR-25-0918 will agree with the recommendation of administration to award RFP 2025-OF-13 to Wasco Group, and the council pass an authorizing bylaw in this meeting authorizing the mayor and clerk to execute the agreement on behalf of the corporation. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Councillor McTaggart, Councillor Morrison. Councilors, any discussion? Seeing none, calling the question. All in favor? It's carried and no one was opposed. Okay, 12.4. Award of tender for the landfill. Recommendation reads that council award tender 2025-OF-14 to Tom Veert Contracting Limited for the period of November 1st, 2025 to October 31st, 2030, and the council pass the required bylaws to execute the required agreements. Mover and seconder, please. Councilor Brunetta, Councilor Bien. Any discussion on this, councilors? Councilor McTaggart?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm concerned about the price increase. I know there hasn't been an increase in 10 years. I wonder how we're going to cover the extra costs. I know there's mention of bag tag increases and so on, but I would like a little firmer numbers.
Who's going to take this on? Manager Miller?
Through the chair. Yes, Councillor McTaggart, following the award of this tender, the user, there's a blurb in here about reevaluating the user fees because the landfill is intended to be operated as a cost-neutral entity. Over the years, it has operated with a slight surplus that Ms. Galusha tucks away for a rainy day, and we'd like to keep it that way if possible.
Councilor Mackey?
Thank you, Worship. So what would the anticipated bag tag fee increase be to cover an almost 100% increase in operations here?
Manager Miller?
Through the chair. Without having done the math, the simple math in my brain is saying it would probably be close to double. Looking at the various waste streams and weighing out where the revenues come from exactly to see whether commercial, like tonnage, that sort of thing, are different, how different classes can be adjusted to balance this out the best.
Thank you, Manager Miller. Any further questions? Councilor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree that it's a big increase. I accept that it has been increased for 10 plus years. I don't think so. I understand why there's an increase. Look at the other bid, and it's over $9.4 million for the 5 years altogether. So 2.2 million looks pretty good compared to that. So, and I think I agree with the administration's view that we should not be going in-house for this because of the extra costs involved, et cetera. So I think, despite the fact that it is a big increase coming, I think it obviously could be a lot worse of an increase. So I don't know what other choice we have really, but I think I'm okay with going with the Veert bid. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions, comments? Calling the question, all in favor? Okay, that's carried. No one was opposed. Okay, 12.5 is the award of the tender for the Hallett and the Owandam. I'll put a resolution on the floor so we can discuss it, leaving the option blank until we decide what goes in there. The council approval of report AR-25-0905 will provide direction to administration to proceed with option blank as detailed below, and the council pass the required bylaws to execute the required agreements based on the selected option. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Councilor Bien, Councilor Morrison. Okay, so, councilors, just before we get into the discussion, we really need to make a decision on this tonight. It's ping-ponged back and forth to administration many, many times. I think they're getting tired of having it come back to them. I see Manager Miller has his hand up. Did you want us to speak?
Yes, I've had lots of thoughts on this project since we've been bringing it forward since August, and I just want to say a few words to introduce this latest version of the report. The original direction we received from council was to move ahead with the design of option 3B and to refurbish the Hallett. That design was completed and tendered, and when the kit bid came back at about $1.6 million, not including the refurbishment portion, it was roughly double the budget we had allocated. At that point, the decision before council should have been whether to award or not award the tender. Instead, we provided several options that we introduced to council, and in hindsight, weren't fully developed or supported by proper engineering or planning. The goal today is to bring the discussion back to the basics. Does council want to proceed with option 3B as tendered or not awarded? If not, then we need to go back to the starting point and decide, do we keep or scrap the boats? The Museum Advisory Committee gave us a nice presentation on that topic. If we keep them, are they to be displayed on land, or will they be displayed in the water, or a combination of both? And then from there, we can assess what's required, whether that means reviewing the cribs for repairs, refurbishments needed by either of the boats, or looking at further ways to reduce costs of the design. So with that said, I'll turn it back to you for your discussion and any questions you might have.
Okay, councillors, comments, questions? Yep, Councillor Morrison.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, I guess we discussed this quite a bit last couple meetings, but I just wanted to say I've been doing a lot of research into the Russell Brothers, the whole thing with the tugboat. I've talked to Superintendent Miller quite a few times over this issue as well. And I've taken a look down there. And I've talked to the contractors who were involved with moving the Hallett in 2009. I was right there. I videotaped the whole thing from the Hallett being moved from Seven Oaks back to there. And with all due respect to operations facility staff here, I don't think, talking to the original contractors who built the cradles, there was no coffer dam built. They built a cradle right on land, and they put it in the lake with backhoe. It wasn't, so it's not going to be quite as elaborate and expensive as I don't think. The contractor that did it then said he'd be interested in bidding. They'd be interested in bidding as well. I also spoke to an engineer and sent them pictures. And I've talked to the person, and I believe Councillor McTaggart has as well, the person who designed the cradles. And I showed him the pictures, and he said, with all the rebar in there, unfortunately, he said, with all the rebar in there, it should be good. And they gave me the name of an engineer who I spoke to as well that could approve that, but he needs to see the original drawings. Unfortunately, the contractor had the original drawings. His computer was broken and it was in the shop, so last week. And they actually followed up because they were quite concerned because they said the original design that they had would have actually allowed the Hallett to float up. We haven't been able to find anything yet and why maybe it was too expensive. We don't know what option, because he was kind of surprised. He goes, well, the Hallett should have been able to float up and float back down in the cradle. But I just personally feel the way it's situated right now, there's already a cement area where everybody the tourists can go on. The cradle looks in fairly good shape to me. It does some cracking on the very top. I don't believe it's in the ice because I was there when it happened. The Hallett was lowered down with the crane and it sat in the wrong spot, and the divers said it wasn't in the cradle, so they lifted it back up again and put it back in, and I was right there for that when it happened. So I think after talking to the engineers, I still think it's the cheapest route to save the Hallett would be to put it right back in the river in the original cradle. Thank you.
So just for clarification, the options before you have not changed. They're the same as they were last week. And last week we deadlocked on options 2 and 5. So in the interest of trying to get a decision, I'm just going to poll council and see which option you favor. So, Councillor Bean?
Mayor, if I may, through you, can I make a comment first before you do that? I like what Mr. Miller had to say tonight. Maybe we have to go back to the original decision was, do we award the contract or the tender or not? And at $1.6 million over budget, I would vote not. If we're leaving it at that tonight, then I'm good with that, and we'll go from there. If we're going to go back to all the different options, then I'm not sure we have enough information still, as Mr. Miller alluded to make an informed choice on any of them in terms of what the financial impacts may be down the road. So I'm okay tonight with just voting on whether to award the tender or not and go from there. Thank you.
So unfortunately, that's not what's before us. We were given a report. What Manager Miller said is not what is in the report. So council is going to have to decide then again, do you want to go on and make a decision on the basis of the report that's before you, or you want to go and scrap this report and have administration bring another report back that you can study and make a decision on? I'm a little disappointed that the report before us isn't up to date. We're getting additional information at a late time now. So council, what would you like to do? Suggestions? Councillor Morrison.
I've seen that we're already past construction season for this year. I personally feel that way we do have a little bit of time on our hands now with winter approaching. And I think after talking to some contractors who were interested in the project and had it originally built the cradles and moved the Hallett in 2009, I think if we called for a request for proposals, I think we might get something interesting with that. I know it doesn't fall in those two options, but that's just my suggestion. I would like to see a request for proposals because I think I've had people in the community offer, they said they would volunteer to paint the Hallett. So, okay.
Manager Rob, you have a comment?
Yeah, just on Councillor Morrison's suggestion, we've been down this path before. Our original kind of post council's decision on option 3B, we went out for a design build, i.e. here is our high level thoughts on what this could be. The contractor come in, design it, build it, and we received 0 bids on that at that time. I would anticipate that likely going out for requests for proposals, we would get much the same from it. Further to that, we have a procurement policy. Staff is compelled to follow that procurement policy. Council has adopted that procurement policy. If we're going to go outside of that procurement policy, then we need council direction to do so.
It's hard to hear you, Manager Rob. That last little bit kind of faded out.
Apologies. So I just added in that we have a procurement policy that council has approved. Staff is required to follow that procurement policy in its procurement decisions. If council wishes to waive that procurement policy to have us go out and procure these services in some other fashion, then we need council's direction to do so.
So I have a question to administration, and my question is, in the report before us, which is fairly similar to the report that we've been discussing over the last few council meetings, there are options. Are those still the options before council? CAO?
Thank you, Your Worship. I know Manager Miller spoke in the beginning of this. I don't want to convolute it. 3B was the genesis of what pushed administration to go down the path because council wanted the 3B concept to come to fruition. If you choose any other option, 2 or 5, you're just giving new direction. So I don't want to confuse this evening that you're basically changing previous direction, which is fine. Perhaps we reword options 2 and 5 to find a solution for tonight, but nothing has really changed. If you want to consider putting it on the water, you're essentially saying we are not tendering it out for option 2. That goes without saying. So nothing has really changed. So if you want option 5, but not specific, you can do a request for proposal or direct administration to come back with a report specific to that because we do have time. If you want to go back to option 2, then you're basically phasing out the project and you are supporting, option 3B that originated the message. So I know there's been a lot of discussion and the preamble in the beginning, but nothing has really changed. You set the precedent before, but we can change that. So really it's option 5 for a new path. We can work on the wording if you want that. And if not, you award the tender. Thank you.
Which is option 2.
Yes.
Okay, so before we get into a huge discussion, so we'll poll council in a minute to see what you want between the options, I assume between 2 and 5, but I see Councilor wishes to speak, so Councilor Mackey, you had your hand up. Pardon me? You may.
Thank you, Worship. I've been scratching my head on this. I used to have hair. So I find it very difficult to make a decision whether it's 2 or 5 when we don't even know what the cost is. We can't put our hand up and say, yeah, let's go this way or that way. We don't have a hard and fast cost. I just can't see agreeing to either option when I don't know how much it's going to cost. So I'm going to say I'm for 4 if we need to make a decision tonight, because I know what that's going to cost.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councilor Bernetta?
Thank you, Your Worship. I wasn't at the last council meeting, and I sort of thought you might have this settled by the time I got back. But the thing that I really dislike is wasting taxpayer money. And a former council sat around this table and decided the the Hallett should be placed in the river, and they spent money building a really nice platform with an accessible ramp and electricity. And if we don't put the Awandam back there, then it's money I feel that had been wasted. So my preference would be to go with option 5, put the Hallett back in the water, look at all the engineering requirements to do that. Again, I do sort of agree with Councillor Mackey that, you know, we do need to know what those costs are. But that would be my preference, to put it back in the water, find out what we need to do to make sure we don't have to lift it out again if there are, you know, the high water issues like we had in the past. So I think that's my decision.
Thank you. Further comments? Councilor Bien?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I just don't see the wisdom of putting it back in the water. It seemed like a good idea at the time, and I'm just not convinced that we're not going to be in the same problem again down the road with climate change and flooding. It might be more frequent, more severe. I don't think that's the best way to go. It may be the cheaper solution over number 2. I don't think it's the best solution. I don't think it's a long-term solution. So if we're going back to the original question, I'm in favor of sticking with the initial concept where it's both on land in the park area, and I will support then option 2, phased in. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, where's the rest of council on options? Councilor Firth, you have an option?
Option 4.
Okay, Councilor McTaggart, do you have an option?
Option 5.
Councilor Morrison, do you have an option?
Option 5.
Councilor Mackey, you have an option?
Option 4.
I'm going to pick option 5 so we have a decision this evening. And with that, I will that option 5 goes in the blank. I'll read the resolution. Oh, sorry, Councilor Bien.
Can I request recorded vote, please?
Sure. So yes?
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, I do want to preface, I'm happy that it sounds like we're picking a path. If there's still concern, because I've heard concern from council about the cost, direct administration then to come back with a report, or we go out for a request for proposal so you see what the cost is before you commit to it. Because the way it's worded right now, you're basically saying you're just going to do that. So I would recommend, and I'm kind of thinking on the fly, you just want to simply say you're not accepting the tender. You're going to consider option 5, and administration will come back with a report for next steps. I think that's the best solution for tonight. You've made a decision. It's going to go back to the water, but then you'll get further details on the costs and the process, and then we know exactly where we're in a way better position at the next council meeting or the second one in November to move forward with this. Thank you.
Yeah, so we're going to amend the resolution in a moment that says administration will consider, direct administration to consider option 5 as detailed below. Do we need to add anything to that?
I would lean on the clerk's department, but considering it's a decision, I would put in the motion in hearing everything that council do not award the tender and consider option 5 and come back to council with a report. That is clear, concise, doesn't even, leave anything for option 2 in the air. You're saying you're not awarding the tender. That makes it clear, concise, and you have a decision, and we know our marching orders. Thank you.
I'm getting nods on that. So in a minute, I'll ask somebody to put this amendment on the floor, but basically it's going to say that council will not award the tender this evening, will direct administration to consider option 5 as detailed below, and come back to council with a report. Seeing nods, can somebody move that? Councilor McTaggart will move that. Councilor Morrison will second that. So on the amendment, any discussion on the amendment? Calling the question on the amendment, all in favor? Oh, and you wanted a recorded vote?
No, not on the amendment.
Okay. So all in favor of the amendment? Amendment carries. So now the main motion then again is that council will not award the tender this evening, and they direct administration to come back to council with a report, and that council will consider in their report option number 5. And I need, well, I have a mover and seconder already. So any further discussion on the main motion? You wanted a recorded vote on the main motion, so
Yes, please.
Councillor Bean,
Nay.
Councillor Brunetta,
Yay. Yay.
Councillor Firth,
Nay.
Councillor McTaggart,
Yay.
Councillor Morrison,
Yay.
Councillor Mackey,
Nay.
Mayor Halkus.
yay. Resolution carries. Thank you, councilors. Okay, 12.6. Put this resolution on the floor. The council approval report AR-25-0909 will agree with the recommendation of administration to include funds in the 2026 operating budget to change the subscription to bids and tenders to have bidders able to submit bids at no cost, and that the town rely on the bids and tenders automatic notification process as well as the advertisement provisions of the procurement policy to inform bidders of opportunities, and that administration continues to utilize the bid summary page of the bids and tenders system for informing bidders on what they need to submit with bids. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Firth, Councillor Mackey. Discussion on this one. Councillor Morrison.
To the chair. Since I came up with this motion, I just wanted to say I wasn't trying to recreate the wheel here with this, as I said to Chelsea a couple of times today, or our clerk. I just want to make it easy for everybody to see the process, the tenders that we have, because I talked to so many contractors in the area who aren't seeing it, like a lot of carpenters who didn't see the sidewalk, or they're seeing in the paper afterwards that we didn't award a tender because the prices were too high, and then they tell me, I never seen it. So all I'm trying to do is make it as easy as possible for all the contractors who are interested in learning about it. Either just get an email and say, hey, this is the tenders we're going to have for this month. Anybody who wants to opt in, no preference given to anything. And anybody who wants to get in, opt in or opt out, just a simple group email. And these are the tenders we have this month. I've done it before when I was in Albertan Council, and I've talked to a couple of councillors there, and they're still doing it today, and it's working well. I've talked to other municipalities of the Rainy River District Municipal Association, and they're still doing the same thing as well. It's not going to be invitational tendering because they're not pre-approved bidders, but it's just letting everybody know, I guess maybe we could word it that way, that, hey, we got this job coming up. We're going to do this sidewalk. And are you guys, if you're interested in bidding, go to bidsandtenders.ca. So I just want to make it as easy as possible in the easiest way that works for the administration with the town. Thank you.
Further discussion? Councillor Bean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, maybe for Manager Rob online here. Will there will be a cost to the town for this? Because now we are basically eating the feed for bidding, and as the report said, 9% of municipalities went with the bid policy. So we're basically changing what we decided a couple of years ago, a previous council. I'm just curious if there's a number of what this might cost the town to go this route. Thank you.
Manager Rob, are you able to answer that?
I didn't unfortunately have the report right in front of me, but I did have Manager Miller reach out to bids and tenders and get an updated cost for 2025. They're around $1,000, $3,500, I believe.
You have anything to add to that, Manager Miller?
Sorry, I'm just quickly scanning the report here. It was, I want to say $3,800 all in per year. It was around that number, give or take a couple $100.
Thank you for that. Yes, Councilor Morrison?
Thanks to your worship. I just wanted to add to that. We had, for the sidewalk last time, I think we had a bid of like $42,000, but estimated about $18,000. And since then, I've talked to two carpenters who approached me, and they said, they would have easily done that sidewalk for $20,000 if they knew about it. That's the thing, we could probably end up saving money, I think. I'm hoping we'll have more bids. And if we have one bid where somebody bids $30,000 and then we get somebody who's only bidding $20,000, I think we're going to have the savings, maybe even through one tender. I just think it's good business going forward, and I think that the town will save in the end with more bids on our various tenders.
Thank you. Further discussion? Calling the question. All in favor? It's carried. No one was opposed. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to bylaws. We have two bylaws this evening. The recommendation reads that bylaw 71-25 being a bylaw to adopt a disconnecting from work policy, and bylaw 72-25 being a bylaw to award RFP 2025-OF-13 to Wasco, be introduced, read, and finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with a corporate seal, and become law forthwith. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Morrison, Councillor McTaggart. Any discussion? All in favor? It's carried. No one was opposed. Okay, brings us to agenda item number 14, which is our notice of motion, and Councillor Firth has one that's going to be voted on this evening. Whereas recent changes to the Planning Act 1990 and Ontario Building Code 2024 have made it more feasible to develop additional residential units in the province of Ontario, and whereas there is a need for more residential units both in the province and within the town of Fort Frances, and whereas the public may not be fully aware of these changes or opportunities within the town of Fort Frances, now therefore be it resolved that Council directs administration to present a report outlining options for creating educational materials related to additional residential units to better inform the public regarding planning, building, and incentivization within the town of Fort Frances, and that the report from administration be presented to Council in Q4 of 2025 for consideration. Councillor Firth, are you moving? Okay, seconder on this? Councillor Mackey, did you second? Okay. By Councillor Firth, seconded by Councillor Mackey. Any discussion on this? Councillor Mackey? Oh, Councillor Firth, sorry.
Through your worship, this is a motion that Mr. Burrows and myself were discussing several times over the last couple months. This is a great opportunity for our administration as well as council to show that we are doing our part to making sure that people are informed about options that they might be able to either invest in and or provide for our community. Obviously, we know we're in a housing crisis, and this is just one small resource that we can make sure that people are aware of in the building community as well as in the residential investment area. I appreciate your consideration for this, and I hope that we can come together on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Firth. Councillors, any further discussion? Calling the question, all in favor? That's carried. Anyone opposed? Okay, brings us to item 15, which is our closed session. I'll put a recommendation on the floor that council now meet in camera in order to address a matter pertaining to, 1, letter of interest from Darrell's Custom Landscaping Limited, re a potential land disposition. That comes under 239-2C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. And 2, a land option agreement from Bridge Roads Developments. This comes under 239-2C as well, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. Can I get a mover and seconder, please, to move in camera? Councilors Bernetta and Behan. Any discussion? Calling the question, all in favor? That's carried, and we are moving in camera at 7:15. For those of you who are following the meeting at home, we will be moving into closed, and at the conclusion of that, we will report back in open session. Thank you. Okay, council is back in open session. We met in closed session and discussed 3 items, and for each of those items, we have a resolution, which we'll get to right now. Item 15.2, we have a recommendation that reads, the council acknowledged the letter of interest attached to report AR-25-0894 and consider the proposal for property disposition, and that council directed administration to prepare an agreement of purchase and sale for the 20 acres of parcel land with Darrell's Custom Landscaping Limited for council review and approval, and that council direct administration to prepare a land use agreement with the proponent for the purpose of peat and topsoil extraction on the remaining 65 acres of land, and finally, that subject to approval of the drafted agreements, that these agreements be approved by council through an authorizing bylaw to be brought forward at a later council meeting. Can I get a mover and seconder on that, please? Councillor McTaggart, Councillor Bernetta. Any further discussion? All in favor? And no one was opposed to that one. That brings us to 15.3, and the recommendation reads that council approval of report AR-25-0892 agrees with the recommendation of administration to enter into and execute the attached options agreement with Bridge Road Developments for a part of Shevlin Woodyard, and that council approve the execution of this agreement through an authorizing bylaw. Can I get a mover and seconder? Councillor Firth, Councillor Morrison. Any further discussion on this one? All in favor? That's carried. Final resolution coming out of the closed session is the council approve as presented the closed meeting minutes of September 8th, 2025. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Morrison, Councillor Behan. Any discussion? Following the question, all in favor? It's carried. No one was opposed. Okay, that brings us to the confirmatory bylaw. Recommendation reads that bylaw 73-25, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council of the corporation of the town of Fort Frances, be introduced, read, and finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with a corporate seal, and become law forthwith. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Bernetta and Councillor Behan. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. No one was opposed. And finally, that having reached the hour of 7:41, this meeting of the council of the town of Fort Frances be now closed. Councillor McTaggart and Councillor Mackey. All in favor? Carried.